I'm the fired employee that Allison Russo was asked about yesterday at the Indivisible Forum. I thought I'd respond because I was not on stage. I'm Sarah Cherry. I'm a Democratic activist for the last 22 years here in Columbus. Some of you know me. I was the House Democrats' lawyer for 13 years. And before that, I worked in the Secretary of State's office and Ohio State's Election Law Center. And Allison fired me in July 2023 when she and I had a disagreement. I wanted her to protect the women in that workplace, and she did not want to. So let's talk about it. First of all, the forum was wonderful. Indivisible did a great job. The moderator, Anna, was terrific. I had met her briefly before that, and I really liked her, so I'd considered reaching out to her to suggest some questions, but I was stressing about it because I didn't want that to come off the wrong way, and I decided to just trust that they would think this was a relevant issue and ask about it, and they did. So I'm really grateful that they did. I was kind of in shock when she asked the question because I didn't know it was going to happen. I think they did probably the best job they could trying to get Allison to answer for these things, but here's what Allison did. Because the question was a combination of, one, what she did to me, and two, this other conflict that she had with a member of her caucus. That happened months after she fired me. So she largely dodged the question about me, and she went right into bashing this former member that she had the major conflict with. So here was the question.
Running and holding political office requires a difficult balance between acting ruthlessly when the situation demands and maintaining one's democratic values. Allison, you have faced allegations from both a fired employee and a former Democratic member of your caucus that you treated them unfairly for your own political expediency.
Ruthless. I love that word. Reminds me of when I tried to coin the term ruthless caring many years ago over a bunch of beers at the India Oak. We Democrats, we care, but we need to be ruthless about it. Ruthless caring. You know who was there, actually? One of Allison's current consultants on that night. That was a fun night. Okay, back to the program. Her entire answer about me was just a few seconds. Here it is.
So I want to be very direct about this. The former employee who continually attacks me, and oh, by the way, is also trying to run against me for State Central Committee, so has a political bent to her attacks.
And then she pivots to give an answer about the former member, portraying herself as the tough leader with a spine, the leader that stands firm, the leader with courage, the leader who's going to tell you the hard truth. So let's hear her answer.
The former member who I held accountable for the most inappropriate and outrageous behavior towards fellow members and staff members and members of the public, I don't apologize for that. I stand behind those decisions because they were the tough and right decisions to make. Because I expect people to show up in spaces and be professionals and to do their jobs and to be committed to all of our values, yes, as Democrats, but also to just be decent people to each other in the workspace. That is what I expect from people. And if people want to attack me for that, and drag me through the mud, go right ahead, because I will make that decision every single day, all day long. And it is that kind of ability to make tough decisions when it really counts. Because politics, and especially being around the State House, it is a really, really rough and tumble place. You can think that you're just going to be nice to people and get them to agree with you. You can reason with people and get them to agree with you. But that is not the case. There are times that you have to stand firm and that you have to have courage and you have to have a backbone. And that is the experience that I will bring to this office because I do not pull punches. And I have a reputation for telling people the tough thing that they need to hear when they need to hear it. And I will always, always be forthright with voters and tell you the truth and the tough things that you need to hear when you need to hear it, because that is the fight we are in right now.
And she got applause. And the only problem with her answer is that it's fake. I wanted her to be tough, and she wouldn't. I wanted her to stand firm, and she wouldn't. I wanted her to have courage, and she wouldn't. She said sometimes you gotta tell a person the hard thing. Yeah, no kidding. That is exactly what I wanted her to do, and she wouldn't. She wants credit for allegedly looking out for staff when it came to this former member. That's a whole other story. And she wants everyone to ignore that she didn't give a damn about staff when I raised concerns. When I, the person whose job it was to look out for these things, raised concerns. So why the different treatment, Allison? Why'd you make my concern out to be a matter of political capital where you had to cower, where you had no choice? That's what you told me. But when it came to this member who you had conflict with, you've portrayed yourself as the protector of staff. So when I saw her doing this months after she'd fired me, my jaw hit the floor. Here, I was recovered just enough from my experience with her that I was preparing to file my EEOC charge. And all of a sudden, she's in all these news articles as some hero, standing up to this allegedly monstrous member, standing up for the staff. I definitely had second thoughts about filing an EEOC charge because she was going to succeed at portraying herself falsely. Here's the text message I sent to my friends, my former coworkers, when I saw this hitting the news. It's November 2023. Pardon my French. I said, oh, all of a sudden they care about a hostile workplace. That is rich. I had begged Allison Russo to care about a hostile workplace just months earlier. And she had acted like I was selfish for wanting her to spend 1 second on that. But months later, when she had the opportunity to look like a hero for cracking down on someone she didn't like, she acted like she cared about staff. Here's the background with me and her. I came to her because I learned that a young man at the house had been disciplined with a 2-week unpaid suspension for creating a, quote, hostile environment. And he had to stay away from the, quote, victim. What did he do? Well, it's not written down in the discipline report, but a senior Republican staffer told me it was because he'd been accused of sexual assault by a female staffer. That was the conduct. That was on the Republican side. I told Allison about it. The Republicans were protecting this young man. They disciplined another woman, another Republican staffer, for talking about him, for talking about, in fact, his mugshot that was online for something else entirely. Republicans disciplined her, told her that she was unethical, this other young woman. I told Allison about it. I told Allison because this impacted our staff, the Democratic caucus staff. This young man was coming around to women's offices on our floor. Word was traveling that this man had been disciplined for something serious, and people knew a young woman had been disciplined for talking about him. So what kind of environment does that create? One where women don't come forward if something bad happens to them, because they've been shown that they'll get in trouble if they do. What was the House doing here? Silencing. I told Allison all of this. There was other mistreatment of women, myself and others, and this was the final straw for me. The Republicans pretended to investigate, dragged their feet for 6 months. 6 months. Finally concluding, nothing to see here. Everything we did was perfect. And what did Allison do? Did she stand firm? Did she show courage? Did she say the hard thing? She did not. She told me she knew this was bullshit. She told me she was not going to, quote, spend political capital on this. She said if she got any political power, she was going to use it on redistricting. We know what happened there. And she fired me. She was marching us down a path of losing. I was telling her, we can't win like this. You can't let the Republicans treat your team like this. It's not right, but in the cold, hard political math, it's not a winning position. It shows weakness. What did she win? What did she get? You heard a lot of tough talk about being tough and having a spine. What did she get? What did she do? She got nothing. In fact, I was telling an old colleague about her firing me back when it happened. And we had a pretty hearty laugh about that part because he asked, did she get anything in exchange for my head on a platter? And I was like, no, she didn't even get anything. both of us were acknowledging that, like, had she gotten something, the promise of fair map, maybe this would be forgivable. But she didn't. So she fired me July 28th, 2023. She said this is a no-cause termination. After I filed my charge with EEOC, still pending, by the way, it just turned 2 years old, she changed her story and invented for-cause reasons for firing me. But those are flimsy and falling apart too. For example, she says I was improperly absent from work one day when I'm doing voter protection for her in the morning, and in the afternoon I'm at a happy hour with her and all of my coworkers that she asked us to set up for her. I'm not going to get into every detail in this one video. You can watch my videos. They're public here on Facebook. They're on other social media. You can learn more, and I hope you do. I have to mention this other part of the forum, because here she is saying how important it is to have your experts around you, to do the very thing that she did not do. Let's listen.
With making sure that we have people in place, that we have the talent in place to do their jobs. And that is what I have always felt as someone who has led in the legislature and someone who has led within my own company, is that you get the best and the brightest, and then you let them do their jobs. You empower them to do their jobs, because I am not the expert in everything. But there are people who you should bring in around you and your team who are, and you should listen to what it is that they have to say.
It is corrosive to the soul to hear someone so directly lie about themselves and you. And you can't jump up and refute it in the moment. And I'm sitting there yesterday next to my sweetie, who's been, against his will, my fellow voter purge detective. Every year he sets me up with an 8 million record database and code so I can track down all the voter purge errors that the Republicans have made around the state. He's had to listen to me on every little trip we've ever taken, on the phone, talking for hours about the purge. He's a trooper. But she's up on stage talking about how important it is to have people like us around her doing the work. Wild. So as the day went on yesterday, I went from feelings of joy because I had fun with my partner and my friends being there, to feelings of like numbness and confusion. Because this is someone I used to have a good relationship with. And the fact that she can just talk about me like that is hurtful. And it's very hard to respond to someone who lies like she does, because she has convinced some people. She gave an answer where she pretended to be strong and bold, and people cheered. She pretended to be what we need, but she's not that. There's a scene in Fargo where Marge Gunderson realizes she was deceived by her old friend, Mike. Mike tells her his wife died, and then he makes a pass at pregnant Marge. It almost feels like a throwaway scene. Marge soon learns that Mike's wife never died, and Linda wasn't even his wife. So realizing she's been deceived by an average-looking person that she trusted and he lied so convincingly, she then reconsiders other ways she might have been deceived, like with Jerry Lundegaard lying to her in her murder investigation. Anyway, go watch Fargo. The point is, people lie. Normal people who we think we like and trust. People we want to like, they lie. They lie convincingly. Look at Eric Swalwell right now. He's turned out to be not who we thought he was. That's extremely disappointing, but we'll live. We can live with the truth. We can live with the fact that Allison Russo has lied to us. If Minnesota nice Marge Gunderson can do it, we can do it. And sometimes there are very hard choices between two bad options, but that is not the case in this Secretary of State primary. We're very, very fortunate that we have a talented, hardworking candidate in the race. If you were at the forum yesterday, you saw that in Dr. Brian Hambly. He's been traveling the state campaigning twice as long as Allison. He's raised a lot more money than Allison. And he has more and better experience. Allison does not have experience running an office like the Secretary of State's office, and Brian does. In fact, that's where she failed the hardest, running an office. And Allison lied to us from that stage yesterday. She dodged accountability by refusing to answer about what she did to me. She said this is all just political. It's just about my lust for power to be on the state party central committee. Yes, she is running against me for ODP State Party Central Committee. If you're in Senate District 25, I'll be on your ballot. Vote Cherry. And it's not just me that she's been dishonest about. She's over on her own Facebook page accusing former Congresswoman Mary Jo Kilroy of spreading false information, when in fact, Allison is being dishonest about her private sector employer as well. So go check that out and watch for updates on that. It's pretty unbelievable that here we are almost 3 years later and Allison and her campaign are still working so hard to defame me, to tarnish me. It's cruel, and it's also desperate. At any point, she could have chosen a different path. If any of you want to talk to me about this, just message me. Thank you, Indivisible. Take care.